Society has a pedophile problem, and a bad one at that. I know, that's probably one of the least controversial statements I've ever made in my life, but it's true. We have a horrendous problem with pedophiles in our society. They run the place, they make all the laws, they're the most common form of crime that we ever hear about anymore, and they are so fucking prevalent. It has gotten to the point to where I genuinely feel like there are more pedophiles in the world than there are normal people. And it is fucking agonizing. Because as somebody who has been framed for this kind of shit in my life before, it really hits me on a personal level to have somebody call you, the worst person on the planet, and it just be complete bullshit. I'm not going into that story again today. I've already told that story before, but the long and short of it is I was accused of being that. And ever since then, I have had the idea of pedophilia ingrained into my brain because it got me thinking. How have we as a society made pedophilia one of the worst crimes second to only murder on the planet somehow so normalized to the point where people will just believe that anybody is a pedophile without a second thought? They don't have to look at any evidence. They don't have to have any proof. They'll just believe it. And it has gotten to a state where it is genuinely depressing and something needs to be done about it. Because for as many jokes as I like to crack on this channel, as much as I like to try to give light to really bad situations, this is one of those things where you really cannot make a joke about it. It's a bad issue. It's a really bad issue. It's an issue so bad that it has affected more lives than just mine. It has affected the lives of tens of millions of people in an incredibly negative way. Like, look up Predator Catch on YouTube right now. You will find out thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of videos of people being exposed for being the worst people imaginable. And it is really, really concerning. And so here I am at 1:47 a.m. at the time of me filming this segment, ranting about what I believe to be one of the biggest issues in society. And I'm not just writing about this because it's been pretty much the only video that's ever gained traction on my channel. Truthfully, I've wanted to talk about this situation since long before I had ever made my channel to begin with. I noticed it back in about 2022, when, I'd say when predator catching became something that just kind of became normalized on the platform. And listen, I have my own thoughts on predator catching. I feel like it shouldn't be a public spectacle. I don't feel like people should be able to make money, because at the end of the day, this money is coming off the crimes of other people's committed. And listen, I get that these people need to be arrested. I get that they need to be put in jail. I'm not arguing that, and I'm not denying that, and I'm not going to defend the actions of any of the horrible people that do these things. But I feel like the commercialization of pedophiles has made it to the point where people just don't look at the crime with the severity that it is. As a matter of fact, it's been so hyper-sensationalized, it has been so outrageously pushed into the mainstream that people just don't even know what the word pedophile means anymore. Again, going back to my original video on that, it was to a point to where people thought that an age gap of 19 and 17 was genuinely predatory. It was a 2-year age gap. If I talk to anybody in the real world that stays off the internet, they will all agree with me. They will all agree and say that it is probably one of the most nothing burger situations on the planet. And yet at the same time, when you look at the internet, how they view the situation, they think that 17 years old, 364 days, and an 18-year-old and 0 days, that's predatory, just because one person is above a line and one person is below a line. What people forget is that this line is created to prevent crimes of, the obvious 35-year-old man going after a 15-year-old girl. These lines were drawn for a reason, obviously. But at the same time, you cannot just go out of your way and say that everything is predatory just because it doesn't go down a magical age line. And at the same time, people think that, an 18-year-old can date a 65-year-old and that's not predatory. Hate to break it to you guys, that is literally the definition of pedophilia, is being attracted and trying to be in a relationship with somebody that is significantly younger than you. And people at the same time think kids can't be pedophiles. Yes, they can. You're telling me that a 17-year-old can date a 12-year-old and that's perfectly fine? You're telling me that an 18-year-old and a 65-year-old can date and just be perfectly fine, but an 18-year-old can't date a 17-year-old? What kind of fucking society do we live in anymore? It has been eating away at my soul. And, a lot of the things that have come about this is with the conflict that is currently happening in the Middle East right now between the U.S. and I believe it's Iran, right? Memory's a little fuzzy, it's late at night. Point is, and it's just thinking, the guy that started this war is a pedophile. You know, the guy hang out with pedophiles. He took pictures with pedophiles. He was friends with pedophiles. All of the government is ran by pedophiles, at least in the U.S. I'm not sure how it is internationally, but all of the U.S. government is ran by pedophiles. Internationally, they'll take action, but not here in America. And that's one of the things I've never understood. I don't want to yap about it too much because I want to really stay on a narrow focus here. But, oh my God. And it's scary, you know, it's a really, really scary time to be alive. Living in a society where, I mean, you know that everything is wrong. You know everything is fucked. You know the people that are running the place really shouldn't be the people that are running the place. And unfortunately, you just can't really do much about it. It sucks. And I'm not going to try to make this into a positive video. I'm not going to be playing any upbeat music or trying to make jokes about this because this is a serious topic that needs to be discussed. Pedophiles are an issue, and the way that our society handles those pedophiles is an issue. That is just completely and irrevocably a fact. You can't try to argue against it. And I feel like there are a few main reasons for this. Obviously, reason number one, as I already briefly touched on before, is the YouTube side of things. Listen, pedophiles need to be exposed. They need to be. There is no debate about that whatsoever. They have to be exposed so they can hopefully, one at a time, be arrested, you know, and got off the streets to make the streets safer for everybody else involved. But what these content creation channels have done, listen, I know not all of them are like this. People like Gideon, people like Skeeter Gene, these people go out of their way to do these kinds of things that really help benefit society. And they do enough of them to where whatever negative would come with the sensationalization, goddamn, the sensationalization would outweigh whatever negatives came from it, right? Then there's other people, lesser known channels out there, other bigger channels. I can't really think of examples off the top of my head right now, but there is a lot of people out there who will just do this for profit, make this whole big sting. They won't work with law enforcement. They won't do anything about it. All they'll do is try to fish up some guy, yell at him, beat the shit out of him, and then just go on with their day. And look, I don't know what your thoughts are on beating the shit out of pedophiles. Listen, I don't believe violence is the answer to that, but you gotta deny that beating the shit out of pedophiles isn't really getting this message across to our society. This is wrong. It's just funny haha laughing content made to design welfare for like a bunch of greasy men sitting in their basement that don't have any talent, that don't have a personality, and just want to yap. Oh, that actually sounds like me, isn't it? That's kind of depressing. Okay. The second point is, there is a lot of people in our society, and those people need to be reformed. Listen, pred catches are an important thing. Like I said before, it's important to get them off the streets. But we really need to focus on the cause of the why. There are way too many of these people out there for it to be just a simple coincidence that there are people like this. It sucks. But part of me is thinking that there is more to this story. For example, I think that a lot of the reason why people end up the way they are is because of childhood abuse. It doesn't make the actions that they commit any more or any less reasonable than they were. They're all awful, they're all horrible, and they need to be held accountable. But if we were to intervene earlier, if we made it so much less taboo to open up about these thoughts, that I feel like society would be a whole lot better as a whole. Listen, I'm not saying that people should be able to go just do whatever the fuck they want to kids. That's horrible, and they should not do it. But people need help. These people are mentally they're mentally deranged individuals that need to get help. And when our society is like this about them, they're afraid that if they say anything, they're going to get fucked over. Which, again, if you do something to a kid, you should be. But you got to understand that pedophiles aren't really in control, sometimes anyways. Pedophilia and being attracted to children is a real fucking disease, and it's a disease that needs to be taken into consideration more. If nothing else, for the victims. You don't have to empathize with the individuals that commit these crimes. I know I sure as hell don't, but you need to understand that if we don't do something, if we as a society don't start putting more of an emphasis on stopping this at the source, people are going to keep getting victimized. And these pred catches, I'm sorry, they don't really do all that much at the end of the day. All they do is get one bad guy off the street, and then the cycle repeats itself over and over and over and over again. If we want to stop this, we have to take it at its source. We have to cut the head off, so to speak. It's like a Hydra. You cut one head off, 3 more pop up to take its place. You gotta go for the heart, rip the heart out, and the heart of the issue is this childhood trauma. And the sooner we start accepting that in order to treat pedophiles, we have to start treating them like they are people. Not the ones that have already committed the crime, mind you, but the people who have not yet committed the crime and are struggling with the thoughts. Those are the people that need to be rehabilitated, because that way, a person does not end up falling down a horrible path, and more importantly, a bunch of victims don't end up getting victimized by somebody because of our inaction as a society, right? And one of the things that I want to talk about is think about it, right? Nobody cares about pedophiles anymore. I mean, there is one running the biggest country on the planet, and it has gotten to a point where people are just so numb to the concept of a pedophile. And that kind of brings me over to my next point, is that people don't care enough about this situation. They really, really should, and they don't, and it's frustrating and it's depressing. Like, think about this. Whether or not you love or you hate Donald Trump, one thing that you cannot deny is he is a massive fucking pedophile. He committed a lot of crimes that he should have been convicted on, and he wasn't, right? And regardless of whether you think he's doing good for the country now, at the end of the day, that is your political beliefs, and I'm not going to invalidate your views one day or another. But one thing that I am going to say is that he should have been convicted on the crimes that he committed. The second that image of him and Epstein hanging out together at that one event came out, there should have been massive public uproar. There should have been backlash, and there just wasn't enough of it, because people don't care that he's a pedophile because, well, I mean, he's just a chill guy, right? And I feel like that's a very dangerous mindset to have. It doesn't matter what the person does so long as the individual is clear and concise in the head. That's not right. You shouldn't treat somebody like that. You shouldn't just brush off their actions because they're the president. I don't care if they're the president. I don't care if they are literally fucking Jesus Christ. Okay, if Jesus Christ rose from the grave and, did something like that to a kid, there is no reason why you should do anything of the sorts to defend that action. You say, well, he's God. He died on the cross for you. Okay, but you still did a horrible thing, and I don't think that horrible thing should have went unchecked. It shouldn't have went unheard of. It should have been investigated. It should have been taken accountable. But the sad part is, if somebody has enough power and influence anymore, we just don't seem to give a garbage about what happens or not. We really don't. And it's frustrating because, again, our society is ran by pedophiles. Our society is built for pedophiles. And it is crazy how little people care about it. Like, think about this, alright? If a document came out on me tomorrow trying to frame me as a pedophile, everybody would care, as they did when I was framed myself, okay? But if the most powerful person, or one of the most powerful people on the planet, gets accused of this, all of a sudden, we just don't care. Why the fuck don't we care at that point? Like, genuinely, I have to ask, why the fuck don't you care, okay? The President of the United States of America is a pedophile. Why don't you care? I want to ask you, genuinely, if that is somebody who happened. Don't say he's not involved, okay? You have photo evidence of this being involved. This is not photoshopped, it's real evidence. I want you to genuinely sit down to me and explain to me how this is okay. You can't come up with an answer, because it's not. There is no excuse for these pedophiles that just litter the internet. And that brings me to my next thing, right? It seems like these exposés have been happening on YouTube so often that, again, it just makes people not care. And listen, I am not one to judge the morality of the people exposing these. I've already talked about that a couple times now, but I genuinely think that that content is doing more harm than good, because I briefly mentioned sensationalization of the content, but that sensationalization numbs people. It really does. It makes them think that it's not as big of an issue as it is, or that things aren't an issue are. It's dumb, it's stupid, and it's really a dangerous thing to be putting out there, to just kind of expect people to be the best person that they can possibly be, when a lot of the times they don't want to be better. They don't want to be a better person. They just want to fulfill their own sick, twisted desires. And again, if there was some intervention early on, this might not have happened, but it did. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating to see the world go to shit, especially the country I live in. I was laying in my bed, right? I got up out of my bed at 1 a.m., listening to music, couldn't fall asleep. And there was this nagging feeling on the back of my head that told me that I needed to talk about this. I know this might seem like a little more yappy than normal, and that's because I'm tired, but I genuinely needed to talk about this. I couldn't not talk about it, because if I were to not talk about it, I would just go to bed with this thought of what could have I done had I said something different. Listen, I know that by now, if you've been around this channel, and let's be real, nobody new is watching this video, but if you are, for whatever reason, new, the thing that sort of started my career is pedophile allegations. I know, it's ironic in a sense, and I feel like this video is sort of me coming full circle with that and really explaining my inner thoughts on the whole conflict of self. Because before that situation, I would have been exactly the same as everybody else on the internet. Lock up all the pedophiles. But with my situation and with me being framed, it really has kind of opened my eyes to just how complex the situation really is. If it was simple as locking all the pedophile up, the president of the United States would not be a pedophile. It's really that simple. But it's not. And I feel like there is a commentary that needs to be said about that. And so, what can we do? Well, I think it comes down to a lot of the points I've talked about in this video, right? We need to start intervening early so that way there aren't victims. We need to stop sensationalizing it so much on the internet. We need to stop making it this huge, big, giga amazing deal when really it's something that is very serious and should be treated with it. All these jokes about Diddy and Epstein and baby oil, all of the worse than Epstein, no party like a Diddy party, all of these childish and juvenile jokes are really spreading this, and that's why I don't like people joking around about people being pedophiles. I don't even like it as a joke because it takes away from the severity and nature of the crime being committed. When I was framed, right, one of the things that I didn't talk about is how, while, yes, I confessed to a 17-year-old at 19. It's a normal thing to do, despite what people want you to believe, as a junior and a senior in high school, right? At the same time, this person was being groomed by a 20-year-old at 17, which the age gap is still not necessarily pedophilic, albeit much, much worse than 19 and 17, but at the end of the day, this person was being incredibly rude, incredibly weird, saying stuff like, "You are my little slut, you are going to be mine, and I'm going to kill myself if you break up with me." Horrible textbook manipulation. And ever since I've tried to become friends with that person again, they just won't let me. It's not because I did something wrong to them. At least I don't think I did. I've tried to confront them several times about this, and every single time I do, they tell me to stop worrying so much, it's fine, and I believe them on that. But there's something almost scary about it, because truth be told, they were the ones that they weren't the one that brought it up, but they were the one that ended up telling the individual who then made a big deal about this, and I feel like they internalized some sort of guilt over that, because truth is, my friend got groomed, and that is a very real issue. That is a very real thing that needs to be taken into consideration, a very real thing that needs to be discussed. And I feel like the sooner that we as a society start taking interventions more normally or more seriously than we do now, the better off we as society would be. I haven't told this story before, but I do want to cap the video off by telling a story, So my mother was 15, right? And she fell in love, quote unquote, with a man who was 25 years old, right? It traumatized her. And the man manipulated her into thinking that she was, in a loving, consenting relationship, when in reality, the relationship was manipulative. In reality, the relationship was toxic, and it was predatory. And the guy had ended up manipulating my mother into moving from Kentucky to Georgia, all the way around. And my mother ended up peer pressuring my grandmother into signing a paper that prevented the abuser in question from being charged with statutory rape. How'd I figure this out? My grandmother told me. And she told me that it was the worst mistake of her life she made, but she couldn't afford to lose her daughter. Not only that, but if she hadn't done it, they would have ran away anyways, and she probably would have been in more trouble than they were. People keep asking me why I keep forgiving my mother. I haven't forgiven any of the things that she's done, but I am able to move past it, and I am able to humanize her in a way because she has been through a lot of shit herself as well. It doesn't justify what she's did to me. It doesn't justify her trying to kill me or any of that. But what it does do is it paints a more human picture. She was a victim of grooming. She was exploited by a pedophile. Okay? And that is the source of her anger, which is therefore the source of all of my issues. So, by extent, I am a victim of grooming because my mother ended up making me her victim. It's a cycle. A lot of things that people don't understand is that pedophilia is a cycle. Pedophiles don't just spawn in overnight. It's a cycle of abuse. My mother was abused by a pedophile, and therefore she abused me. And she started... Oh my god, I don't want to go into all the horrible shit here because, again, that's another video. But it's a cycle, and that's what needs to be stopped. That's why this intervention is so important. Talk to the kids. Talk to the teenagers. See the signs. If you see the signs, you need to really talk to them to hopefully prevent them from going down that bad path, and by extension, having somebody victimized to one of these horrible crimes. It's something that doesn't need to happen, and it's an intervention that could be made had society just taken things a little more seriously. It's so frustrating. It really is one of the most frustrating things on the planet to know that there are these evil, evil, evil people running everything, to know that people don't care about it anymore, that they sensationalize it, that they profit off of it, which I've always felt profiting off of pred catches is gross. Listen, I get you need a way to sustain it, but my Lord Almighty, it is genuinely one of the most disgusting things on the planet to profit off of another's suffering. Maybe it's just my biases. Maybe it's just all of the shit that I have went through and all of the childhood trauma I've had to endure because of, grooming. Not, I was groomed, but because of grooming. I had to go through this. And my goodness, it was horrible. It's led to some of the worst things of my life. It has led to some of the most awful garbage on the planet. And I kind of just have to sit around and live with it. I hate it. I hate every second of it. I hate all of the garbage. I hate all of the trouble and all of the pain that I've had to go through. But it's just the way of the world. Because I guess people just don't care enough. And it's really disappointing. And so, if I have to leave you with one thing, really start taking this more seriously. Stop cracking jokes about Diddy and Epstein. Start really taking this for the very serious crime that it is, and stop treating it like it's some sort of just joke, something to meander around and to confuse yourself with. Please make sure to be okay. Make sure to look out for people. Make sure to watch your kids. Make sure they're not getting into any issues. And with that, my name is Trilad. Join the Discord, subscribe, link in the description, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.